I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
But then to suddenly, get to that place where you've opened up your marriage and you're like, actually, we can recontextualize this type of interaction with someone else, this type of intimacy, this type of experience, and it doesn't have to be destructive. You can agree that it's okay for you to behave this way with someone else, to kiss someone else. Then I was like super excited to try it out.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you like what we're up to here at Together, please don't be shy. Leave us a review on iTunes. Tell us what you love, or tell us what you don't love. I personally read every single review, and some would even say I'm a tiny bit obsessive about it. So reach out. It'll make a big difference to us. Now on to the show. This week, we're presenting a two-part interview about challenges that are inherent to all romantic relationships, but which in this case are made more apparent by non-monogamy. Our couple this week, Esther and Chris, are exceptionally transparent about their process. And that really is saying something because both of these two are quite well known in their respective professions, so it takes some courage. And I might as well tell you that there's no tidy resolution to this story. These two are very much in the midst of a dispute, and we're going to have a first-hand view of what it's like to be in the middle of a potentially critical challenge without all the right answers that come from hindsight. But these two are committed to something, and it's something that they think is important. And as a result, they're willing to both share their challenges with us and to continue working it out with each other. Now, as a listener, you will inevitably have your judgments about this couple. But as I've said before on these shows, I invite you to suspend your judgment for a time and rather allow what these two are experiencing to represent for you the challenges that we all face with our partners. Relationships are hard no matter the configuration. Intimacy and honesty are intimidating no matter your partner. We all fall down despite our best intentions, and yet we carry on. And we don't know what's going to happen with these two, but at the end of the interview, I did ask them why they keep going, and their answer really moved me. Now, I'm not going to give it away just yet. For that, you'll have to listen to Thursday's episode, but I think it'll be worth your time. So with that, let's go to part one of Esther and Chris. So you met on OkCupid, and had been a long process of trying to find somebody.
I mean, we should be clear about what we were looking for, because this wasn't the kind of thing where, we were on dating sites to find the one true only, in a sense. We were both married, and we were both on OkCupid with, completely under the auspices and sort of knowledge of our partners. And for me, I guess the way that I was looking at it was I had recently opened up my marriage, and maybe within 6 months or so prior to that, something along those lines. And I was like, wow, this is great. Now that my marriage is open, wouldn't it be great to use one of these algorithms that's out there that's about hooking people up together, and to see if we can see if I can find people to meet, to talk to about non-monogamy or about polyamory or about this whole different lifestyle. And so I was going into it without really any expectations of anything specifically happening, but hoping that I might find someone sort of who had experience that I could learn from.
And so how did you put that in your profile?
I probably mentioned something about being attached or about being, married or something. I think you might be able to remember better than me, but I think it was sort of clear on my profile, what my status was and what my situation was. And to answer your other question about the duration of how long this all took, I was probably on the site, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks. And
that's quick.
Crazy, because Esther was the first person that I ever messaged on OkCupid. We had a 99% compatibility, and we ended up she did a phone screen with me, which is highly recommended. And for some reason, she actually sort of decided, even though she was about to quit the site altogether and just sort of focus on herself and kind of give up the open stuff for a while, somehow I convinced her, okay, fine, I'll meet this guy, whatever. He's a newbie. Never get involved with newbies in the polyamory space. And so we did, and we met, and we kind of like hit it off, I guess.
And what about you, Esther? So you also were in an open marriage.
Yeah, yeah.
And had you been in an open marriage for a while at that point?
Yeah, it'd been a while. We had tried a bunch of different things. We, at first, when, sort of like classically, we opened up and were doing things together as a couple, mostly with other couples and sometimes single women. We did that for a while, and then I was kind of the one who wanted to go and do things on my own. And so I had gone and I'd been dating pretty consistently for, like a year, and had a couple of, multi-month relationships, one with a guy that lasted 6 months. So Chris was definitely not the first person that I had met on the site. And I wasn't giving up on being open. I was just at a point where I was, being a woman on a dating site can be really overwhelming. And so I'd been going through a period of irritation with all of the messages, and it just is so time consuming to meet with people on first dates. And so that's where the phone screen came in. I was like, okay, I'll talk to you on the phone, or maybe do a Skype and see if it's worth actually meeting up for coffee.
and well, obviously it was.
Yeah. So he was brand new and eager and interested in having a conversation. And I just thought, like, okay, I can do that. That's fine.
Yeah. And so then what happened?
Yeah, I guess, like, I sort of shared my story, my background, and I think I got, like, hers. And at first it was, like, a very strange kind of, I don't know, I guess part of what it was for me was hearing about her background, her set of experiences, and then also, like, the things that she had done. Like, for example, she had studied international affairs and relations, and after the terrorist attacks in 2001, decided to, like, do the thing that no American thought to do, which was, like, to go to the Middle East and, like, learn Arabic and, like, learn about the people who had, like, attacked us. And
wow.
That just sort of, like, struck me as this very, like, bizarre, strange thing. Meanwhile, she was also
very impressive.
Also, and she did learn Arabic, and she can speak Arabic, and so, like, that, it was sort of a incongruous experience to sort of meet this sort of short, blonde, cute girl, and to think about what that experience must have been like to be like a cute, short, blonde woman sort of in that place, in that time.
He just wanted to kiss me. By the end of the night, let's just cut to the chase. He was like,
fine.
Let's make out.
Is that the first date?
Yeah. So this is the thing that I learned, or one of the things that I've learned. So apparently, when you're sort of in this kind of open situation, depending on what it is you're actually looking for, and depending on what your, let's say, sexual appetite might be, getting to know whether or not you have actual chemistry with someone is actually really important early on in online dating. And so, as Esther explained to me, you can go for, like, many dates with people and, like, nothing's happening, and you're like, are you into me? Like, are you cute? Like, all that sort of stuff. And she's like, really, you should just find out, like, if you actually have any chemistry. You should just really kiss on the first date, get it over with, see if there's anything there. Because if there's no good kissing, then...
She said that, or who said
yeah.
that?
Oh,
Esther said that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so of course he wanted to kiss you.
Yeah, of course.
You set that up. You say it as if it was him, but you actually planted the seed.
Oh, I'm devious.
I don't remember exactly when she told me this, but there was sort of an efficiency, perhaps because of the abundance that she had experienced in these online dating services. As she said, when you're a guy in dating services, you're like, oh my God, I'll kiss anything. And then like you're a girl, you're like, I don't need to, like, kiss anything at all if I don't want to.
And so you guys kissed and it worked.
And I liked it.
Yeah, we were excited to, like, see if that could happen again.
Yeah.
And I think that it was surprising for both of us. One, I have to, admit, I guess, about myself, like, I have been a serial monogamist my entire life. That was sort of the only model that I knew, and I think I was always trying to figure out how to sort of, like, make that work. I'd been married for 2 years, and I was sort of like, okay, my options now are sort of very limited, and that was fine. That was sort of what I had anticipated and expected. but then to suddenly, get to that place where you've opened up your marriage and you're like, actually, we can recontextualize this type of interaction with someone else, this type of intimacy, this type of experience, and it doesn't have to be destructive. You can agree that it's okay for you to behave this way with someone else, to kiss someone else. Then I was like super excited to like try it out, but to actually kiss was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you can do this on the first date. Like, I don't know, that's possible. Maybe I just like struck out being an adult for a long time.
So, but you said something really interesting, which was that this experience can be non-destructive in a marriage, but your marriage did end, right?
Oh, for sure. So it ended up being destructive.
Was it destructive, or I thought maybe
Yes.
you were going to say it was something else?
What I'll put it this way: my attitude and my hope, perhaps my naive hope, and I actually will say it has more to do with the implementation of the behavior than the behavior itself. In other words, what ended up happening in the way that I ended up pursuing this behavior was destructive. The way in which I was impatient, and I still am impatient. And I think I guess I wanted everything all at once.
Which is like what?
Well, so like I said, you get into a marriage, you sort of expect that you're going to be sort of in a marriage like for the rest of your life. You kind of expect that you're going to probably only have sex with one person for the rest of your life. And then suddenly you find out that those barriers can be relaxed or they can be changed. And then suddenly I was like, this is amazing. Like, I can actually express myself in ways like to people that I'd inhibited myself from doing before, or thinking that it would be possible.
Right.
Right. And so in that sense, it didn't have to be destructive. In other words, if I made out with like another woman, my wife wouldn't have to think, oh my God, you cheated on me. She could have known in advance that was possible and that would happen. And we had an understanding and an agreement that was actually okay.
Right.
And
so
that was mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
When I discovered open relationships, open marriages. And yes, that was the theory.
Yeah. But the way you implemented it
was faulty.
was faulty.
Yeah.
And so do you consider yourself to be at cause in the breakdown of the marriage?
Oh, for sure.
And what level of responsibility do you assign to your ex?
I mean, I obviously don't want to speak on her behalf, but I would say that I pushed really hard beyond the breaking point. So I would take responsibility for how much and how hard I was pushing to kind of make this new reality that I thought was possible happen in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
I also would say that like it was, and I was going through counseling. My ex-wife was going through counseling. We were going through couples counseling. We were like trying to work all this stuff out and trying to find language to use to talk about these things, trying to figure out, just where we were at, what was the nature of our connection, what we were doing. And I guess part of the challenge there was that I was having all these new and foreign feelings that I hadn't felt in a long time, namely the falling in love feelings. Like all that dopamine was just sort of like in my system. And, when you're on drugs like dopamine, you behave differently.
And it was Esther dopamine.
Uh-huh. Yeah, for sure. And so anyways, that just sort of like compelled me, I think, to make some, rash, short-term and caustic decisions, that ultimately where I optimized for like and selected from my experience as opposed to being patient and saying, you know what, like actually this is hurting her so much that I actually need to like pull back and like get recentered on the marriage.
So would you do it differently?
I'm trying to do it differently now. I mean, we're like Esther and I are sort of in this like interesting moment where there are what I would consider to be kind of like distant echoes of the past. It's not the same. I don't feel the same way in these moments, but I do feel and now I can label and identify the urgency and the desire and like what I want, and I can see it and I can talk about it. But then when I don't get it, like there's still this kind of like angst in me. So yes, I think I am actually acting differently, but it may still have some consequences on the relationship.
Right. And Esther, for your part, what was happening in your marriage?
When I met Chris, I was actually really happy in my marriage. I mean, I hadn't always been. I would say like we had plenty of ups and downs, but we hadn't had a lot of challenges in the opening up process. Like that was not very painful for either of us. It was fun, lighthearted. We were together a long time. We had 2 kids. Like it was really stable. And my now ex-husband is just a very trustworthy person. So I never like worried about him running off with somebody that he met, and he hadn't really worried about that with me either. So when I met Chris, we were in a pretty good place. But the process of me falling in love with Chris turned out to be a lot more painful for him than he expected.
Had you never fallen in love with a relationship before?
No, it had always just been, somebody that I liked, or there was like a sexual chemistry, but no one I would really pursue.
Yeah.
Maybe because they were partnered or whatever it was. It never felt threatening to our relationship.
And was that in the ground rules?
We hadn't initially said no falling in love with anyone else, and we had then specifically talked about it and had said, yeah, that's actually totally okay. And so it had been a theory that we hadn't really put into practice. And Chris was the first person who I fell in love with.
And it turned out to be really challenging for your ex.
Yeah, it turned out to be crushing, painful. And when I didn't walk away from Chris and sort of pull back into my marriage, that's when it just became too much.
If it hadn't been so challenging for your husband, do you think you would still be married?
Yeah.
Because you feel like you have the capacity to have love for 2 men simultaneously.
Yeah, I wanted to stay with him. In fact, after I moved out of the house, and even after the divorce had been signed, I was still trying to find a way, thinking maybe there was, maybe with some time he would come back around and say, oh, we can figure this out. But it really wasn't what he wanted. And I think that was the thing I had to come to grips with, is that he had opened our marriage for me.
Oh, you were the one who wanted it.
I was the one who had asked for it. I had been the one who was excited about it. I was the one who was, more successful in the process. He said that he got ran over by the poly bus. That's what he'd say, because, it was challenging for him to find women that he really wanted to date and that wanted to date a married man. And it was not hard for me to find single or attached men who wanted to date me. And finding women I found to be challenging.
Right.
Probably as challenging as he found it to be. So I can understand his experience wasn't really all that great.
Right. So, but losing him as a result of this dynamic that you were interested in pursuing didn't chill you to that dynamic in general. So you still remained poly after the divorce.
So I stopped using the label poly only because Chris and I had a lot of conversations about the fact that we weren't actually open to being polyamorous, at least yet. Like the idea of us pursuing independent relationships and going and actively looking to fall in love with other people, like we just weren't in a position to be doing that again. At least not right away.
Painful.
Yeah. And there was a lot to heal from. I mean, 2 divorces happening simultaneously, our lives completely shifting, moving in together ultimately. Like there were too many like moving pieces.
So how then did you structure your new relationship with one another?
We called it monogamish, so that's a term that Dan Savage uses, and basically just describes a couple who's mostly monogamous, but who will occasionally do things together, usually picking up like a third, a woman, or maybe going out with a couple. So that's really how we chose to structure our relationship after we got together as an independent unit.
And is that what continues today?
It's a work in progress.
Ah, good. Let's hear about the work and the progress.
Yeah, I do tell.
Yeah. So, what has been interesting in this entire process, sort of as a meta commentary on, I think like the divorce process, and then where we are now, and the work that we're doing on our relationship and like on ourselves, has been sort of a realization, a recognition, and an identification of a lot of our own internal struggles, behaviorally and in terms of like emotionally, the things that trigger us. And it turns out that each relationship is unique, and the things that it brings out in you is also going to be unique. So specifically, like Esther has a lot of, let's say, sort of built up fears about abandonment specifically. And like I have a different set of fears around either like freedom or expression or trust or
whoa, what are your fears? You outed hers. You got to be
those
more
were mine.
specific.
Those are mine.
Intimacy.
No, intimacy, sure.
Intimacy.
Okay.
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 Sure.
Commitment.
Sure. I mean, I have a whole laundry list. I mean, you can make T-shirts of all the things that I have problems with. But anyways, so as it turns out, like as we've tried to figure out how to structure our relationship, and we've tried to introduce different things, whether it's bringing in third parties, into like the bedroom or like things like that, there are different moments and different times when my behavior or her behavior will trigger something in us that goes much deeper and sort of outside of that moment. And then we're left to kind of like duke it out and, or to sort of like work it out. And the process is very messy. We've also learned a lot about what I would consider to be your emotional metabolism.
Nice.
Yes. So, I have learned that I have a very slow emotional metabolism. And so it takes me a long time to get over things. Yeah, you too, right?
Me too.
Yeah. So like, something happens and like, I'm like, for days, I'm like in this like angst filled world, and I need to like go listen to like Soundgarden and Tool and whatever, and just like rage against the machine. Whereas like Esther will like blow up like a firecracker, more Katy Perry, I guess. And then sort of, be kind of over it,
I'm over it 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
You two have the same exact dynamic as Aubrey and myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's very common as I sort of talk to more dudes about this. So that's one thing. And like, it's taken us a year and a half to kind of sort of just have that like meta awareness. We still haven't exactly worked out how to work with that per se, but like I'm getting a little bit better about saying, like, for example, we had an argument the other night, and Esther was looking for reassurance, and I was like unable to like access my feelings because of something that had happened like the previous nights. And it was very strange because normally I'll say something like, mean or defensive to get the person away from me, when I can't access my feelings. So I feel like I just need to say something. And this time I was like, you know what, like I'm in a place where I don't know how I feel because my feelings are sunk so deep down, and this intimacy is getting so much in my face. And I just like, I'm in my little box, or in my huge, enormous, giant, like steel walled box.
Yeah.
And I can't really give you what you're looking for right now.
That sounds like genius. What was your response to that, Esther?
How long are you going to be in that box?
She's like, let's put like
Right.
let's do
Like,
this for 15
okay,
minutes.
so I hear that. But like, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
And then he said, I think 3 days from that point. I was just like, 3 more days? Like, what the hell is wrong?
Which, now, your reaction to that, did that cause you, Chris, to put up more bars, in fact, because she was angry that you had set your
I
boundary?
wasn't angry. I didn't express anger. I just was like, it's more like exasperation. Just like, really? Like, you're still going to just like hide out about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is an ongoing question, I guess I would say. So, I mean, I wanted to circle back to like your question, which I think was around how this is working out now. Is that right? Like sort of like how we're structuring our relationship now. So my meta point was sort of, wow, we tried to sort of maybe recreate or to create, I guess, for the first time, a configuration for our relationship that we thought would work. And so as we introduced other people into the relationship and into our dynamic, it turned out that it brought up all this other stuff, which then led us to have all these insights kind of about ourselves. And so it's a constant kind of work in progress, I guess is my point.
But that's how every relationship is.
But the stresses are different, and they're in some ways more acute. And when maybe you have a picture or a vision for an alternative configuration than the one you have, as opposed to being monogamous, and it's like, okay, there's this party A and there's party B, and you're in a relationship and you're just gonna like, work your shit out, and like that's fine. With us, it's like, well, we want to like weave in a third person, or like I want to do something on my own, or we want to like see about dating a couple or whatever. Each of those different configurations and each of those different experiments may bring up different types of insecurities or issues or legacy things or echoes from the past or whatever. And then you have to sort of figure out, well, is this the same thing that we dealt with last time when it was like a third person that's happening with the foursome configuration?
But does it matter from whence it arises?
Yeah, see, I would say it doesn't, but for
Wow,
him,
really?
it does. Yeah, this is the thing. He's so impatient that if it's not the setup he wants right now in the moment, then he's unhappy.
Like, what do you mean specifically?
So, well, like he would love right now to have multiple women that he was having sex with.
Yeah.
And he would love to have a relationship that's independent of me. And I've been the one who's like, that I don't really feel ready for that yet.
Yeah.
I don't feel like secure and stable in us in that, right now.
In
like,
any of that?
Like doing things independently. That's the thing.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? Like,
So
she's
like
okay
together,
with,
it's fine.
right? So they're not all the same. Like she's okay with us sort of, going in tandem and sort of, doing things as a unit.
Yeah.
But if we were to do things separately, then that's what sort of brings up a lot of these issues, and that's consistently been true.
Well, okay, but I'm saying a different thing. So you guys have, that's an issue that you have.
You're talking about the emotional reaction is always the same?
Yeah, I mean, you haven't resolved that question. That's still the open question for you, is how the two of you are going to reach a place that it works for both of you with regards to that, or maybe split. But what I'm saying is the fact that intimate relationships cause emotional issues, legacy issues as you call them, to rise from the past and rear their heads, and then you have to deal with them and learn about yourself and grow and create intimacy as a result. It almost doesn't matter where they come from. They're just going to come up in intimate relationships. And that's both the obligation and the privilege of being in a relationship.
Yeah, that's what I was agreeing to. I mean, I totally
I guess
had
what I'm just trying to say is that these different configurations may actually invoke slightly different legacy issues in the person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're not always the same.
Right.
I guess that's my point. Like in some cases it may be about jealousy, and in other cases it may be about abandonment.
Well, do you think do you have a philosophy around that legacy issues come up in relationships?
I guess I would say, and again, what we've noticed is that, like different types of connections to different people, and the way that you connect to people and the way that you may establish intimacy with people, I think do dig up different things for you. The way in which you're exposed to someone, or the way that, they may compliment you, or the way that they may, not do things that you're looking for.
And do you think that there's a reason or purpose behind that, ultimately?
I mean, I think that hopefully you're matched with somebody who brings up things in you that you need to, and hopefully are willing to work on.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's not a relationship that exists, even a friendship that exists, that isn't going to rub you in some way. And hopefully in that process, instead of it being just an irritation that turns into an open wound that festers that you're never going to heal, that it becomes an opportunity for you to actually, go and get the medicine you need and like let that wound heal.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that's just part of the relationship dynamic.
Well, so I'm curious then about how you are working out this. This sounds like this is the core debate right now in the relationship.
What's that?
Because it seemed like there was a charge around it. The question of, can you go have experiences that are independent, Chris, because that's what you want to do, and Esther, whether you're ready for it or not, is it going to be safe for you? Is that the core issue? Or are there other core challenges?
I think that's probably the sharpest one right now. I mean, just generally like what our configuration looks like, and and how we sort of like approach each other and work this stuff out, while also recognizing that the ways in which we trigger each other are extremely deep. And so, the wounds that we're both processing, I mean, to Esther's point, are things that we sort of stab over and over again, sort of accidentally along the way.
Yeah.
It's not like I caused the pain that Esther feels, or that she has caused the pain that like I feel, that's sort of like deep and buried in my bones. My reaction to the things that she does came after years and years of practice growing up. Like it's intuitive to me. And so me just being able to see that, and to just see the way that I behave, to have that metacognition and that meta-awareness, allows me then to sort of maybe communicate where that comes from and make it less about her. And then once we sort of isolate that, then it's like, okay, well, what can we do to support each other? What can we do to kind of be in this together? And then if we come to sort of an agreement and a supportive situation that feels strong enough, then how or do we incorporate other people into that mix?
Do you trust each other?
Not right now, really.
Well, that's it for part 1 of the Esther and Chris story, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in Thursday to learn why trust is so low in this relationship and what they're doing to work on it. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review there. It makes a big difference when you do that. We also have a crowdfunding campaign that you can find at www.patreon.com/together. That's patreon.com/together. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both @together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. Thanks once again to our guests, Esther and Chris. Guys, your openness still has me in awe. Thank you both. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.